Have you wondered why some people genuinely prefer being alone? Not because they're sad, not because they don't have friends, and not because they hate people. They can spend an entire weekend by themselves and feel completely fine. No plans, no constant texting, no need to be around anyone. Strangely enough, the longer they're alone, the more like themselves they seem to feel. Most people assume they're just introverts, but psychology suggests there may be something deeper happening, because being alone and feeling lonely are two completely different things. One can feel like isolation, the other can feel like freedom. For some people, solitude isn't something they're trying to escape from. It's actually where their mind finally becomes quiet. Think about that for a second. When you're around other people, you're constantly responding to something, their expressions, their moods, their expectations, what they're saying, and sometimes what they're not saying. Even when you don't realize you're doing it, part of your attention is focused outward. But when you're alone, all of that disappears. There's nobody to impress, nobody to entertain, nobody to explain yourself to. And for certain people, that doesn't feel empty, it feels peaceful. Psychologists have found that solitude and loneliness aren't the same experience. Loneliness is the feeling that you're missing a connection you want. Solitude is simply being alone. And when being alone is something you choose, it can feel completely different. Some people use that time to think, to create, to process their emotions, or simply to exist without having to perform for anyone else. And that's where things get interesting, because people who enjoy being alone aren't necessarily avoiding the world. Sometimes they're just very selective about when they let the world in. They may enjoy people, they may have close relationships, they may even be incredibly social when they're around the right people. But they don't necessarily need constant interaction to feel okay. And in a world where we're expected to always be available, always responding, always connected, being comfortable alone can almost seem unusual. But maybe it shouldn't, because when you stop needing constant stimulation from other people, you start noticing something. Your own thoughts become louder, your own preferences become clearer. You start realizing what you actually enjoy when nobody else is there to influence the answer. And that can be uncomfortable at first, because being alone removes a lot of distractions. There's no conversation to hide behind, no social media notification demanding your attention, no one else deciding what happens next. Eventually, you're left with yourself. And some people learn to really enjoy the person they find there. But there is another side to this, because not everyone who spends a lot of time alone is choosing solitude. Sometimes people withdraw because they've been hurt. Sometimes they stop trusting people. Sometimes being alone feels safer than risking disappointment. And from the outside, those two people can look exactly the same. One person is alone because it gives them peace. Another person is alone because connection feels dangerous. The behavior looks similar, but psychologically, the experience can be completely different. So maybe the important question isn't, do you like being alone? Maybe the better question is, why? When you're alone, do you feel peaceful? Do you feel like you can finally breathe? Do you enjoy your own thoughts? Do you lose track of time doing things you genuinely enjoy? Or does being alone feel like protection? Nobody can disappoint you if you never let them close enough. That's a much harder question. And the answer can tell you something important about yourself. Because healthy solitude doesn't necessarily push people away. It simply means you don't need another person's presence every moment in order to feel complete. You can enjoy connection and still enjoy returning to yourself. Maybe that's why some people can walk into a crowded room, have conversations, laugh, connect, and still feel an enormous sense of relief when they finally get home and close the door. It's not always because the people exhausted them. Sometimes the quiet simply restores something that the noise takes away. And maybe people who genuinely enjoy being alone have discovered something the rest of us spend years avoiding. Being alone doesn't automatically mean something is missing. Sometimes it's the only time nothing is being asked of you. No role to play, no expectation to meet, no version of yourself you need to become for someone else. Just you. And maybe the real question isn't why some people prefer being alone. Maybe it's why so many of us are afraid to be. Because once you're uncomfortable in your own company, being alone stops feeling like loneliness. It starts feeling like freedom. And perhaps the people who understand that aren't disconnected from life at all. Maybe they've simply learned how to connect with themselves. And that's something worth thinking about. Until next time, go beyond the thought.